Hey everybody, this is Dale with Networking Step by Step, and in today's video cheat sheet we're going to configure suppression of sending of hello packets. We're going to do some baseline show commands to see the prefixes that are being advertised, and then we're going to suppress the sending of hello packets, which is a fancy way of saying that we're going to configure a passive interface. And then we're going to do some verification show commands to see, after we configure the passive interface, if the routes are still being propagated the way we think they should. Let's take a look at the network topology. We're going to configure passive interfaces here on router 5 and router 6, and then we're going to go up here to router 2 and do our show commands for verification and baselining. So let's get started. Start with router 6 here, show IP OSPF neighbor. We have a neighbor adjacency, and in particular we have a neighbor adjacency with 7 over Ethernet 03. So we wanted to suppress the sending of hello packets out that interface to router 7. So we are going to configure underneath the router process ID a passive interface of Ethernet 03, which is the interface that goes to router 7. Once we configure this, it will stop sending hello packets out that interface. And what we should see is the neighbor drop, which we just did. We're going to go ahead and verify that with a show IP OSPF neighbor. And as you can see, the neighbor out 7 is now gone because we stopped sending hello packets out that interface, and the dead timer expired, and we no longer have an adjacency. But let's see if that interface is still propagating that route. Now we know it was when OSPF was running across it. You run OSPF across it, therefore you advertise the prefix out to the network. But now that we have it configured as a passive interface and we're no longer sending hello packets out that interface, and we've lost our neighbor adjacency, will router 6 still advertise the prefix on the link between router 6 and router 7? So let's go over to router 2. And sure enough, it still is. It's advertising the link prefix, and it sees router 6 as the source. So once again, even though we're not sending hello packets out that interface and we lost the adjacency, we're still advertising that prefix. This command comes in very handy if you're ever peering eBGP with another autonomous system and you need to track throughout your network that next hop address of your neighbor. So you would put that prefix of that link in OSPF. Well, you don't actually want to run OSPF with them. You don't control their network. They could propagate a default route to you and cause all kinds of problems. But you need to advertise the prefix. So do a passive interface. You can put the interface as a network command, just like you normally would, and then you can do a passive interface, and it won't send the hello packets out the interface, but it will advertise the prefix throughout your network. So let's go ahead and remove that to bring the adjacency back up, and you do that via a no command. So I'm going to do a no passive interface, so I'm removing that command, sending it back to default so that it is no longer passive, and our neighbor should come up, and there it just did. And we'll verify that real quick, and there it is again, neighbor adjacency to 7, out the interface. Another way you can do this, and we're going to go do this on router 5, is we specified a particular interface to be passive. What if you want all of them to be passive and then specify just the ones you don't want to be passive? Well, you do a passive interface default. So on router 5, we're going to do a passive interface default, and we should see all our OSPF adjacencies go down, which we just did. So now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to say these two interfaces in particular are no longer passive, because once again I set them all to passive. Now I'm going to specify these two because these are the links that go to router 3 and router 6, and my OSPF adjacencies have come back up. That is a big security measure that if you really want to be on the safe side, to not run OSPF with anybody unless you specifically say do a passive interface default and then only specify which interfaces you don't want to be passive. So that's two ways to suppress sending of hello packets out an interface.